So funny story. Clerics get their start in Dave Arneson's home game, where one player gets bit by a vampire, because I guess vampires were a new monster to the game at that point, and it totally made sense for that player to be a vampire, and for that player to continue to be a PC, just all vampire-y. Bleh. That's probably how he did it. Exactly how he did it. This is exactly how the story went. And the next guy over, the guy across the table, turned to Dave and said, "Hey, I want to mess with this guy. Can I be like a guy with holy magic so I can be like Van Helsing in the movies and hold up crosses and mess with him?" Because every player class comes with its own flavor of antisocial behavior. And that's how we got Clerics. I guess I have to start my ideas about clerics by rolling back to my ideas about human religion and this idea that the human empire was all demon worshipy, and then they fell into decadence. And I want to say that it wasn't like overt evil pageantry demon worshipiness. It was subtle and quiet and reserved for the elites. And all these local cults and regional cults were allowed to happen for common people as long as they paid their taxes and, of course, engaged in whatever the Imperial Festival was, which was probably some big demon worshipping thing on the low key. Like, no pentagrams on public offices, but when you zoom out, you step back, you can see where they hid the pentagrams in the street signs and, the highway system and whatever else. Yeah. And of course, that being said, as the Empire fell into decadence, the demon worship has gotten a lot more obvious. But what we have now, absent the human empire and the collapse of the demon worship, is all these local cults, little local houses of worship, with a lot more power, or a lot more opportunity to grab power and grab influence. So thousands of faiths are running around, and if we're setting this game out in the borderlands, the bickering fiefdoms and the hills and the Black Forests, like this corner up here-ish of the map is where I think we want to put this, because that's got the most D&D-ish things for low-level people. The most low-level D&D, low-level-ish D&D-ish things for low-level D&Ding to happen in is pretty good. So I guess I don't have a clear role for clerics except that we have emerging structures of power and influence, and they're all clamoring for attention, and they're all trying to grab their corners. And hell, fuck it, most of them mean well, right? Like, I'm not going to paint every single lawful good deity as, looking to be, the Templars or anything like that. But just this idea that there's a vacuum of spiritual energy, as it were, and everyone wants to fill it. And so I don't necessarily have a clear pantheon in mind for anything except the dwarves, I guess. The dwarves and the elves are the only ones with clear pantheons in mind. Did I come up with something good for halflings? I think, yeah, I had two good ideas for halflings. But when a player sits down and says, I want to play a cleric, I'm like, well, okay, what domain do you want to pick? And work our way out, right? This is, okay, are they a big structure? Are they not structured? Are they cellular? Are they hierarchical? What's the story here? Because it's going to be a question of what's most interesting for the player. And hell, you know what? If a player doesn't have a good idea, I guess I'll sit down and make it up myself. But I'd rather have that moment of, okay, what's more interesting? Are you independent operators, as it were, or are you part of a big hierarchy? How corrupt is that hierarchy? How ossified and bureaucratic is it? And we work out from there, and it's the same way we develop, the 3 to 7 bullet points that is the tenets of their faith. based on what the domain implies and what I remember from various mythology and folklore classes I've taken. Yeah, yeah. I think this is how we come up with clerics. Is it's loosey goosey, and there's room for a lot of ideas. There's much more room for clerics to be a bigger deal or not a big deal, depending on the game. One day I'll say it is something definitive. Subscribe until then.